It's funny how betrayal can seep into your bones, how it can twist the very fabric of who you are. I still remember the day they called me insane. The way my father's laugh echoed through the house like a twisted melody, punctuated by my mother's disdainful sigh. I was a disgrace, they said, a cryptobotanist chasing shadows, unearthing secrets that should have remained buried. You'll lose your mind, they warned, and disgrace us all. But I hadn't lost my mind. I had merely found another world, one that thrived in the darkness. Years passed since that day, years spent delving into the grotesque beauty of haunted biohorticulture. I had been fired from my job at city sanitation after being accused of covering up a mass grave. They had no idea what I had unearthed, the dark truths buried beneath the soil. In the quiet corners of forgotten graveyards, I discovered plants that fed on the dead, flora that thrived in cursed burial grounds. I was no longer the laughingstock of my family. I had become a warning, a figure draped in shadows, a voice that spoke of horrors others dared not acknowledge. The day I returned home was drenched in a foreboding atmosphere. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, the kind that turns the mundane into something sinister. I stood at the edge of the property, the once familiar house looming before me like a mausoleum. I could feel their eyes upon me. My parents peering out from behind the curtains, waiting for the spectacle of their mad child to unfold. I was no longer the scorned. I was a harbinger of truths they had mocked. I had come bearing gifts, seeds of nightmares, cuttings of pain, and a knowledge that would make them rethink their laughter. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my past pressing down on me. As I stepped onto the porch, their expressions shifted from skepticism to something darker. I could see the flicker of fear in my mother's eyes, the tightening of my father's jaw. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile, one that spoke of the horrors I had faced. "Why are you here?" My mother's voice trembled, a whisper barely rising above the wind. "To show you," I replied, my voice low and steady, "what I've discovered." I pulled out a small glass vial filled with a viscous, dark liquid, a concoction made from the essence of the cursed plants I had cultivated. The very plants that thrived on the despair of the dead. They drew back, their faces pale, yet their curiosity was palpable. "What is that?" my father asked, his bravado faltering. "An invitation," I said, holding the vial up to the light. "A glimpse into the world that you refused to believe existed." And then, as if on cue, the world around us shifted. The wind howled, a mournful sound that seemed to echo from the depths of the earth. Shadows elongated, twisting into grotesque shapes that danced along the walls of the house. I could feel my heart racing, the primal instinct to flee rising within me. But I stood firm, knowing that this was the moment they had to confront the truth. The ground beneath us trembled as the air thickened with a pungent scent, a mixture of decay and something sweetly intoxicating. I watched as the shadows coalesced, morphing into forms that were both beautiful and horrific. The plants I had nurtured began to bloom, their flowers unfurling like hands reaching for the living, their colors vibrant against the backdrop of despair. My parents recoiled, their faces twisted in horror as the entities emerged, spectral figures adorned with the very flora I had cultivated. They were the spirits of the forgotten, the souls trapped in the earth, their eyes hollow, yet filled with a longing that resonated with the pain of the living. "You see," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos surrounding us, "this is what you ridiculed. This is what you refuse to acknowledge. The darkness is real and it hungers." My mother stumbled back, her hands clutching her chest as if trying to ward off an invisible force. My father's bravado shattered, replaced by a primal fear that coursed through his veins. The mocking laughter that had once filled our home was now replaced by whispers. Echoes of the past that seeped into the very foundation of our lives. "Please, stop this," my father pleaded, his voice cracking under the weight of what he witnessed. "We were wrong. We were wrong." But it was too late. They had mocked me for too long, dismissed my passions as delusions. The spirits, drawn by the scent of their disbelief, turned their hollow eyes toward my parents, their mouths curling into grotesque smiles. I felt a surge of vindication. "You wanted to see what I've become," I said, my voice echoing with an eerie calm. "Now you have your answer." The air crackled with energy as the spirits closed in, the flowers blooming brighter, feeding off the fear that radiated from my family. I stepped back, the shadows enveloping me, but I was no longer afraid. I had survived the darkness, learned to wield it as my own. As the spirits reached for my parents, I turned away, leaving them to face the consequences of their disbelief. I walked away from the house that had once been my refuge, the laughter of my family now replaced by their cries of terror. I had returned to show them the truth, to force them to confront the darkness they had scorned. And as I stepped into the night, I knew that I had become what they had feared, a keeper of secrets, a harbinger of the horrors that lay hidden beneath the surface. In the end, I was no longer a disgrace. I was their reckoning.